There are some attorneys, like all other professionals, who exaggerate the problems that it is that they deal with and help resolve. Now, lawyers do this for many reasons, but the three most common reasons I see is one, to sell their legal services, two, to make their services seem more valuable than they are, and then finally, to win arguments with other lawyers. So for the first example, to sell their legal services, a good example would be estate planning lawyers. They make the probate process seem 1,000 times worse than it really is. If you have sort of a normal situation, you die and you have a spouse, or you die and you have a couple of kids, everything's amicable, you have a moderate size estate, a will is really not going to save you a fortune or expedite the probate process, by much at all. But the lawyer will tell you otherwise and act like unless you use his services to plan your estate, then you're really just handing off to your family a nightmare that's going to drag on for years and years and years in probate court. That's not always the case. That's most often not the case. But like I said, estate planning lawyers want to sell their services, so they'll exaggerate in some cases. The other example, lawyers want their advice to seem more valuable than it is. To give one example, I helped these clients out a few years ago, and in my opinion, it was the safest and smartest thing to do to take the couple's house out of their name, because there was a really significant chance that they could lose the house from receiving government aid with their nursing home bills. And they weren't in any sort of situation to use any other mechanism other than to take the house out of their name. A tax attorney in the family came along and said, what this lawyer did, what I did, was tax suicide. And they were going to get taxed into oblivion when they sold the house because the basis rate would be from the day of the transfer to the time they sold it. Now, in reality, it wouldn't make that big of a difference in terms of the basis rate. There was a much more substantial risk of losing the house altogether. But the other lawyer used such hyperbolic language, tax suicide, and blew things so far out of proportion that the family took his advice and had me undo what I had done. Right? And then finally, and kind of related to that topic, is lawyers will exaggerate things to win arguments with other lawyers. This will happen a lot with contract negotiations. So I will, for instance, want some language put into a contract, and the other lawyer wants it taken out of the contract, or vice versa. And then the lawyers will then call their clients, because the client has the ultimate say, or they should at least. And then some lawyers who can't stand to lose on a negotiation, even on an insignificant thing, will just scare their client beyond belief into agreeing with their lawyer so that the lawyer gets his or her way. Right? So not all lawyers exaggerate and blow things out of proportion. A small percentage do it, but you should be aware that it happens. It happens for a number of reasons. And if a lawyer is telling you something that seems extreme or drastic, you should really consider what his motivation is, and do some research on your own to make sure the lawyer's not blowing smoke and not blowing things out of proportion. If you need legal help, contact me, send me a message or an email. I'd be happy to work with you.